You ever just browsing the internet and you see something and you think, maybe you could use it, maybe you couldn't, but you just go for it anyway? Yeah, that's what I'm doing today. So what we're actually looking at here is a steering stabilizer, but an OEM steering stabilizer from Honda themselves. They actually had these on the CRF450s and probably the 250s back in the day. My old 2009 CRF450R had one of these, and the previous generation CRF450X up until 17 or whenever it was had these things on there. And then they phased them out. I don't think they're on any CRF models these days. But anyway, like I was saying, I found this online and figured, yeah, I can give it a shot. Maybe this can be adapted for the CRF450RL. I'm not 100% confident that this would actually fit. In fact, it's most likely that at the end of this video, I'm going to say that this was a total failure and it didn't work. But there is some evidence to support the fact that this could be retrofitted, or whatever the opposite of a retrofit is, to the CRF450RL. But for the most part, this episode is just going to be me figuring this thing out and just seeing if it works, if it doesn't, if it does, how, all of that good stuff. Maybe we'll find something really cool. Let's see. So I mentioned earlier that there was some evidence to support the fact that it could take this, because even though this is a newer model, it does share a lot of its old components from the previous generation. So we have the headlight off so I can show you what I'm working with here. So at the very bottom here, right just above the fender, there is a thread right here that would accept a bolt, the same bolt for the steering stabilizer. The bottom piece would be attached here, and then a second piece would be attached on the frame. And if you can see way back there, there is a post that could fit a thread. It's not threaded right now, but it looks like it might actually be the perfect size for a thread insert. So my thinking, at least at this stage, is I can put in a threaded insert there. I have a threaded insert here, and then we have two posts for each side of the steering stabilizer, and then it would be fitted something like this, kind of similar to what it would look like on the old school bikes. A couple things with this that don't give me much hope is that, number one, there is a lot of stuff going on right here, and this is required to move. It's going to go with the motion of the handlebars. Probably not going to be ideal having wires in the way, and it's hard to see right here, but the difference in the placement from this thread to where this thread would be in the back here is quite significant. So we need to have a really long bolt in order to get this lined up. See, all a crapshoot at this point, but if I don't find out, who will? Well, I'm starting to gain a little bit more confidence in this design because it is actually starting to look like it's possible. I have it roughly in place, at least with the one thread that I do have, and just checking the back right here to see if that is a good size. Now, obviously it looks long right now, but in the front, it's going to be as short as possible. And so it looks like that will still fit, and the length of this damper, I think, has enough that if we go full lock, left and right, yeah. Yep, it has more than enough room to clear. Also, there are a few wires here and there that look like they might be in the way, but for the most part, it's actually pretty clear down here. I just need to probably shorten or tuck up a couple of these. This is the blinker, and then this I think is the ignition. So we can just probably try to tuck those up inside here, get it as clean as possible, so that way there's nothing here impeding the movement. All right, so off camera I did some more cleanup, tucked up some of the wiring, and it looks like it's going to clear, at least in this stage. We'll have to see with the headlight, because I know that that's going to take up some space behind it. But now comes the tedious part. This is the thread repair kit I got it on Amazon, link in description. One of the first steps here is this drill bit to drill out the hole to get this thread insert sized correctly, and I don't even have to do that because this drill bit is pretty much the exact same size as that hole back there. Looks like all I really need to do is take this and thread it a little bit just so it'll accept one of these little thread insert guys. All right, we we got the thread insert in there, and I was gonna say it's moment of truth time, but I will demonstrate for you. We have this out and we have it in the bottom one. And I have a bolt here that I was intending to use, but if we put this through and compress it, we can see that does not fit. It is too long. Shit. Eventually. You join me a week later. I've had a bit of a rethink, and as you can see, a little bit of hackery that's been involved here because I made it work. I could not fit this directly into this post here, but thankfully this frame has another up here. So I threaded this one and just bridged the gap. Now, I will freely admit that this is the hackiest job ever. Don't get me wrong, this is not precision work here. This is literally done with as many scraps as I could muster, plus a couple of bolts that I found at Home Depot. The metal bar that's used to bridge the gap is literally just taken from some angle pieces from my garage door opener that I had left over. In fact, it's the exact same garage door opener bracket that I used for my license plate. So this bike is pretty much held together with garage door opener fittings. So it's held in together with 2 bolts, and then in the middle I have a very long bolt, a long M7 that's 50 millimeter, and that's spaced together with every washer I could possibly find. As I mentioned earlier, it actually does clear in its current form here, but I will say it is a very tight fit. So you can see here at a full lock on the left-hand turn, it is very close to the wiring harness right there, just a few millimeters, if anything, right there before it hits. And on the top here, I don't know if you can see that bolt, but the big black piece in front of it is the ignition system, and it just barely fits right there. In fact, that bolt had to be shaved down, otherwise it was rubbing against the thing and it was really hard to turn left. So you can see that that bolt is a lot thinner than the bolt down below. So after lots of trial and error and lots of fiddling and filing and shimming with a bunch of washers, I have gotten it to the point now where it fully turns from lock to lock without any impediment on the wiring harness, no impediment on the steering damper. I can't believe I got this to work, but it fits. Well, I say it fits, but there's a huge caveat, and that is the headlight assembly. You kind of need that to have it to be running on the street, and yeah, that's where things take a little bit of a left turn. First part is the bottom here, so as you can see, the fender is attached, and in this little gap right here is supposed to be the bracket, and the steering damper is clearly blocking this here. It cannot go in there at all. So even if we were able to get those posts to fit somewhere, or even just trim them off completely, the other thing I was thinking is maybe just if you cut these off entirely and then just had like a through bolt right here somewhere in the middle, that could work. The only thing is there's a bit of a gap. It will not, 100% will not fit where it's supposed to with that in there. It's just too much stuff going on. The headlight itself, this big old chunker right here, is in the way. It takes up that entire spot. I mean, if you really, really wanted to, you could probably fit it in such a way that with a trim down here and with a gap, like a spacer bracket right there, maybe an inch or two, you would get it to fit, kind of. I really tried for this thing to work, and I was skeptical at first, and I said this was probably gonna end in failure, and it kind of did. I mean, if you really honestly want this thing to be a dual sport, it's not going to work. You would have to have this thing turn into basically an RX, you know, just have a number plate here rather than a headlight, or as I said, make a lot of bracketry, do a lot of cuts to the headlight in order for it to clear. But who knows, maybe someone will take a look at this video and take it the next step further. In fact, one company that I know actually makes brackets for this very steering damper is Ride Engineering. They make a bunch of them for KTMs, Huskies, YZs, even some of the new CRFs that unfortunately do not share this frame. So Ride Engineering, if you're looking at this, maybe you want to take a look at this. I can give you the specs, make one yourself. All this to say you win some and you lose some, and this time didn't quite win some, but hope you enjoyed anyway, and see you next time.